Welcome. Thanks for joining in. So let's. I'm Kyle Feedy. I've been with Songtrust for a little over 5 years. Currently Director of Society Relations, working mostly with our partners such as the MLC. And previous to that, had overseen a lot of our operations here. And excited to chat with y'all. I will leave it to Anna to introduce herself.
Thank you so much. My name is Anna Bond. I'm the Senior Director of Global Business Development at Songtrust, and I work with some of our business partners to ensure that they're able to collect everything that they're owed on the behalf of their writers around the world. And I'm very pleased to introduce our special guest today, which is Dae Bogan, who is the head of third-party partnerships at the Mechanical Licensing Collective, or the MLC for short. Since we may be saying it a lot, we'll use the shortened version.
Please, thank you.
I think you'd appreciate that. And let's go over today's agenda. So today we're going to learn what the Mechanical Licensing Collective is and how it's going to continue to have an impact on songwriter royalty collection starting in 2021, which is now. We're going to dive deeper into the details surrounding the MLC, including the services they're going to offer, they are offering, the types of royalties they're collecting, and who can be a member. And we're also going to understand exactly how the implementation of the MLC can and will impact songwriters and specifically Songtrust clients.
So yeah, let's kick it off. I guess let's kind of meet the MLC, if you will. So Dae, what is the MLC? What's its purpose? Why are you here? And how that's good.
So existential. The MLC, the Mechanical Licensing Collective, we're a nonprofit organization that has been designated by the United States Copyright Office to administer the new blanket mechanical license. Back in 2018, the Music Modernization Act passed. And that act included 3 titles or 3 parts. The first, Title 1, is called the Musical Works Modernization Act, which essentially sets up the existence of the MLC, or establishes the MLC and establishes the license that we administer. Our role is to basically collect royalties from digital service providers such as Spotify and Apple Music and Pandora, Tidal, Deezer, so forth, to also receive usage statements, reports from those DSPs, to parse that out and pay out songwriters and publishers and administrators, and basically to make sure that we're helping to find and match songs to the proper copyright owners, and to the make sure that we can match the reports that are coming in from societies, from DSPs, to pay the proper people. So we're a quasi-government organization, sort of, since we're regulated by the Copyright Office and regulated by their decision-making, rulemaking around the policies. And we support and work for publishers and songwriters.
Great. I think you touched on it there, but who created the MLC? How did it come to be, and who currently is kind of overseeing and in charge of what's happening?
So the Music Modernization Act was a music industry-wide effort, as you all know, to modernize the way that we license music in the United States, specifically musical works, but also had other parts that we're not really going to dive into today. And those efforts also included establishing an entity that would be responsible for one type of mechanical licensing, which is the mechanical licensing for interactive services as well as digital download services. The organization, the MLC, is comprised of a board of directors as well as 3 advisory committees. These individuals on the committee and our board were nominated by music industry professionals across the board. And then we have obviously our leadership team, including myself as the head of third-party partnerships, and our We have about 10 or 11 other members of our leadership team, and a growing staff or team size, which is really interesting because we're establishing a music rights organization during the pandemic. So we haven't got to meet each other in person and hang out and do the things that some people have been able to do before you moved into a work from home environment. We've been working from home from day one, but we collaborate every day and standing up the organization and meeting the requirements of the policy.
Great. Yeah, I can say, having been part of the process of, working with you, that the MLC has done a great job of reach out and doing things like this. That's been fantastic. A question that has already come up, and one that we anticipated, who are the members of the MLC who can join?
So the members of the MLC are publishers, music publishing administrators such as Songtrust, songwriters, composers, lyricists who are self-administered, meaning they control the registrations of their works and collecting their own royalties. So members are and societies, so CMOs outside of the United States from different territories representing their members in their countries. So those are our members. We have been campaigning and promoting the MLC and generating awareness for months now. And we continue to grow the membership base every single day. And we're going to be doing that all through 2021 as well, as continuing to focus on a number of efforts to reach prospective members and to get them onboarded. We've already onboarded thousands of music publishers and publishing administrators, and now the focus is also to continue to onboard self-administered songwriters who are not currently working with publishers or public administrators.
Fantastic. Great. You sent over a great kind of outline of what the operational guideline of what the MLC does. And I think it's a good kind of segue into really diving in deeper and asking some of the nitty gritty questions. And if we want to start.
Yeah, so this is we've had many iterations of this diagram to try to help communicate to the public the MLC process, which shows how we've stood up the organization, but also how the organization will be operating ongoing. So let me kind of walk you through this diagram using the labels at the top as kind of our guide. So number one is connect to collect. And this is ultimately our campaign to reach prospective members and to get them onboarded. Songtrust, you guys were part of that from early on, being a part, obviously having representation on our committee, but also just being aware and in tune to the process of getting yourself set up as a member, representing your clients. So that become a member, connect to collect piece has been working for months now. People think that we just launched January 1st and just starting to work. As you guys know, we've been working for months now. This has been a process of having conversations early on to say, how the onboarding process what it will look like, what membership requirements will be in place, and so forth. So Connect to Collect is an ongoing campaign to get people to sign up. This part two is play your part. So this is the obligation of members to play your part, meaning, what is your contribution to make sure that your rights are being appropriately licensed, that we are accounting to you based on information that we have in our system. So that means to register your works with us. It also means to check the data that we already have. So, play your part. We have a campaign, or we have a program called the Data Quality Initiative, which is a very important program that enables publishers and CMOs and administrators to check the data that we have, and songwriters as well, by the way, to check the data that we have in our system, to check it against your data, to learn if there's any discrepancies between the data, and if so, to be able to act on that data to fix any omissions or errors, so that when we are going to pay out against that information, we have the most accurate, up-to-date information. So the play your part includes checking the data that's already in our system, which you can do by logging into our portal, or by participating in our DQI process. We have 5 DQI partners right now, which are companies that are helping small publishers and songwriters with checking their data. And they include a number of companies listed on our website. But that's the important part in terms of playing your part, is checking your data, registering new works, and then making sure that we have the accurate stuff. So under there, you see that there's songwriters who flow through their music publishers and administrators, such as Songtrust clients. So if you're a songwriter and Songtrust your administrator, your play your part is being taken place or being taken care of by Songtrust. So, Songtrust's job to check the data, to make sure it's accurate, to work with their clients, to make sure you're capturing the proper information from them, and then getting it to us through the processes we have in place. Then we have self-administered songwriters, those who may administer their own songs. There may be clients of Songtrust who still have songs outside of their Songtrust administration who then could potentially be eligible. So, those people will have to do this as well. And then we have songwriters who come through publishers, and publishers who come through CMOs outside the United States. So in other territories that are representing their entire membership. So all of that is our sort of the inputs into the MLC. And we have a portal, the MLC.com. You can go and sign up for access to the portal. By accessing the portal, you're able to check data in our system. You'll be able to search our we have a public searchable database, which does not require portal access. But by having portal access and becoming a member, you're able to update data that you administer. This third sort of phase or section here, digital services stream or sell downloads of recordings of your songs. So out in the music industry, as various digital service providers are generating consumption of your music, whether it's that consumption is through music streaming or if it's digital downloads, those services have to then provide usage data back to the MLC, as well as royalty payments to us. And we are going to be then taking that information, matching the usage data regarding sound recordings to the musical works that are in our database. And again, our database is a combination of the works that are registered to us by our members, the data that we acquired when we initially set up the database, which has to be cleaned and scrubbed by our data quality initiative, and then ongoing copyright research that we deal with internally with our own team to make sure that we're addressing some unmatched information or incomplete information. So in this section that says making the mix, we are matching the usage data that comes in from the DSPs to the musical works that we have in our database, so that we can say, okay, these are this is the usage associated with these musical works. And then we calculate the royalties that are due to our members, and then we make the payments out. The payout, again, flows the same inputs of data are the same outputs for royalties. So we have those 3 kind of lines there where it's music publishers, we pay self-administered songwriters, and we pay ex-US CMOs. So that's the flow. One layer down under that flow, you'll see kind of these little boxes where it drops into, so under number 3, you'll see that there's number 6, where it's commitment to transparency. We have a commitment to transparency that's beyond just a verbal commitment. It's a mandate. So we're mandated by law to have a publicly accessible database, so that anyone can go and search the our database and see the ownership and the ownership shares associated with the musical work. In addition to that, when we do the matching in number 4, where we're matching the usage data to the musical works that are in our database, when we do not have a match, when a match is not identified, that falls into an unmatched usage as well. And that unmatched usage would be searchable on our website as well. So you have two sort of buckets to search from. One is the overall database of musical work ownership that we have, and then the other is the unmatched usage that has not been matched to a work in our system, and therefore we cannot pay out royalties on that usage because we can't identify works or the rights owners of that. So that's the overall flow from an operational standpoint. My day-to-day as a head of third-party partnerships is to support this in a number of ways, including providing enrichment to our services or added value to our services and to memberships.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. That's a really good, it's always helpful to see a diagram, especially with something as complex as the flow of mechanical royalties. Songtrust loves our diagrams. So this is a question, and it's something that we were going to address, and it's coming up a lot in the chat. And honestly, everyone is always confused about this. So can you just quickly outline the difference between the MLC and a performing rights organization like BMI or ASCAP?
Sure.
And also, how is the MLC different from Sound Exchange?
Sure. So the first thing to kind of step back, and Songtrust has done so much education about this on your website, but to identify that there are multiple copyrights, right? There's 2 copyrights primarily when it comes to the music industry that we're dealing with here. You have a copyright in the musical work, which is the or composition or song, whatever term you want to use for it, but we're going to use musical work. So composition in the musical work, which is your lyrics, your melody, your arrangement, all of that. And then we have a copyright in the sound recording itself of that particular musical work. And there may be multiple versions of the sound recording. So those 2 copyrights. In the music publishing or music rights administration landscape, those copyrights are administered differently. And the copyrights are licensed differently through different organizations. So when it comes to the musical work side, which we traditionally call publishing, we have performing rights organizations and therefore performing royalties. So ASCAP, BMI, CSAC being sort of the 3 most popular PROs in the United States. Those PROs handle performing rights, which are performance royalties that stem from publicly broadcasting or publicly performing musical works. Then you have the mechanical royalty, which is associated with publishing as well. The mechanical royalty has to do with the reproduction and the copy of a musical work. So when a song is streamed on a service, it earns a royalty for its public performance, which flows through ASCAP, BMI, CSAC, GMR, AllTrack. And then you have a mechanical royalty for the reproduction of the audio file, which as of now, 2021, will flow through the MLC for any DSP that's using the blanket mechanical license. So ASCAP, BMI, CSAC, GMR, AllTrack, those PROs are paying out on the performance royalty. The MLC is paying out on the mechanical royalty. So all of that falls under publishing and the copyright for the musical work. Then we move over to the copyright for the sound recording. And there's one organization, Sound Exchange, which is the only organization that is designated to administer the digital performance rights and sound recordings, which are basically digital radio royalties. So internet music services like Pandora, satellite music services like SiriusXM, and cable music services like Music Choice pay their royalties to the sound recording owners for the sound recording performance on their digital platforms. So that's the difference, is that you have 2 royalties on the publishing side, you have performance and mechanical, and then you have one on the and this is, there's other royalty types, but just in terms of societies are concerned, there's also other types of royalties like your master royalties and so forth. But Sound Exchange is an organization that represents the artists and record companies for digital radio royalties. ASCAP BMI CSEC represents publishers and songwriters for the performance royalty, and the MLC represents publishers and songwriters for the mechanical royalty.
Excellent. Yeah, I think that's another example of why diagrams are so helpful in publishing, because everything breaks up into so many different pieces. So I'm glad that you mentioned with the Sound Exchange answer, interactive and non-interactive streaming, because you did mention that MLC will be licensing interactive streaming sources. Can you tell us what types of service will the MLC not be licensing, and speak specifically to those different types of streaming, as well as, you know, what about physical mechanicals?
Yeah, so mechanical license is required for the reproduction of of musical works. I'm sorry, so reproduction of musical works in a lot of different types of use cases. So you have physical goods like vinyl and cassette. So the MLC is not going to be handling mechanical licensing or mechanical royalties associated with physical goods, because that does not fall under the digital audio blanket license that was created by the Music Modernization Act. Physical goods, for example, every record company that puts out CDs and vinyl has to get a mechanical license from the copyright owner and the songs embodied in their sound recordings. Then you have ringtones. So ringtones are not covered under our service. We have cover songs, where a lot of artists do cover songs and want to put them up on YouTube. You cannot get a cover song from the MLC. I'm sorry, you cannot get a license for a cover song from the MLC. Then so you have physical cover songs, and then it moves into interactive streaming services. So interactive streaming services is what we cover. So interactive stream is, again, like Spotify, anywhere where you can pick and choose your songs to listen to. So we administer the license that they obtain, which is the blanket mechanical license. And digital download stores. So digital download stores that choose to use a blanket mechanical license will also report to us and pay royalties to us.
You've mentioned blanket license a lot, and for some of we know that's a bit of a shift. Why is instituting a blanket license, opposed to individual licenses, better for songwriters, and why that approach?
Sure. So before January 1st, 2021, the process for, if you're a digital service provider, again, like a Spotify or Apple, in order to be compliant with copyright law in the United States for having musical works accessed on your service, you'd have to have a mechanical license in place. The process for securing that mechanical license at the time, well, before 2021, was just basically two ways. One is a direct mechanical license, where you directly speak with the publisher or an agent of the publisher and secure a mechanical license in a direct deal with a copyright owner, or you use the compulsory process, which the compulsory means it's embodied in our copyright law, a procedure by which you can secure permission by following the procedure. And the procedure included remitting a notice of intent to obtain a compulsory mechanical license to every copyright owner for every musical work that's on your service. So if I wrote a song today and I record it and then use a distributor to upload it to Apple, then in order for Apple to be compliant with the laws, they would have to have a mechanical license for that, for the musical work that's embodied in the sound recording. And the process was generally to work directly with a publisher, if my song is not represented by a publisher, then to go through the NOI, Section 115 NOI process, which is to send out a notice to me to say, hey, this is a notice that we're using your song on our service and you've been notified. So all I have to do now is just account to you and pay you out on a monthly basis, the mechanical royalties. But if I don't register, if my work isn't registered with anywhere that provides publishing information to the DSP, then the DSP won't know I exist, and therefore can't send me a notice of intent. Instead, they can send that notice of intent to the Copyright Office, the U.S. Copyright Office. And over time, the U.S. Copyright Office was receiving millions of these notice of intents from digital services, and in paper. And then that changed in 2016 to an electronic bulk filing process. But this meant that you have services trying to keep up with the upload of new music to their system. So trying to send out these notices that could be delayed over time, working with various mechanical clearing partners who are also trying to help with the process. And there's all kinds of delays. If I'm an independent songwriter, I may not have even heard about this whole process. So me receiving a notice was basically non-existent. That opens up liability to the digital service providers. It also meant, more importantly, that the songwriters themselves and small publishers as well may not be accounted to and therefore paid the royalties that are due based on the uses of their music on these services, because this process was basically a broken process. It made sense, many years ago, decades ago, when it was, an individual record label getting a mechanical license for a release that they were pressing up, and that process made a little bit more sense because the record label can go and secure the mechanical license. But for a digital service provider, this process of sending out a notice by song on a song by song basis was not an efficient way of doing licensing. There needed to be some way to bulk license all this music that's being uploaded to the system. So that's why we created a blanket license. So the blanket license that has gone into effect this year basically says all the songs that are performed or that are accessed in the United States on any digital service operating in the United States that want to use this blanket license, you will be able to use you will be in compliance with the copyright law. That's a better way of saying it. So it's about compliance with the copyright law. It's not even about the usage of every song. That is, the use of every song is possible because of the compliance with the copyright law. So you have this blanket license that says, as long as you fulfill the requirements of the blanket license and the procedures associated with securing the license, which includes sending to the Mechanical Licensing Collective a notice of license, as opposed to sending out to millions of copyright owners a notice of intent to license, they send to us a notice of license, and then they have to submit usage reports to us of all the music used in their service, whether or not those songs are covered under direct licenses or not. And then they have to remit to us the payments, the royalty payments. So following these things, those are the kind of the basic kind of high level requirements. Following those requirements means that you are compliant with our copyright laws of the United States. And therefore you can use, the songs are properly licensed. So this is good for songwriters because there is now a agency, the MLC, that is mandated to represent all the songs in the United States. There was no agency prior to that was mandated to represent all the songs that are being used in the United States. There were agents that were working for publishers or working for DSPs or both, who are helping them with the mechanical licensing administration process, but they're not mandated to represent every song, every publisher, every songwriter. So in that gap, meaning the songwriters and publishers that are not represented by those agencies, there was no efficient process by which a DSP could license songs. So now with the blanket license, if you're a service, you can say, here's all the information about all the songs used in our service. Here's all the money associated with the mechanical license. And now we have a designated organization whose everyday job is to match those usage statements to the musical works to make sure that DSPs I'm sorry, to make sure that publishers and songwriters are being accounted to and then being paid. And it gives publishers and songwriters a centralized place to register their songs for all the DSPs that are using the blanket license, as opposed to having to not know where to go.
Great. I think, as someone that started my career in mechanical licensing and have dealt with NOIs for a very long time, I can't even stress how much this process is going to simplify and just kind of really help the entire chain, from top to bottom. It's a great step, and I'm glad that we've gone that way. Another one that I think is common and something that comes up often, is the idea of the black box. And MLC has kind of been characterized as a solution for the black box, where kind of unpaid money is kind of going into this imaginary box and then not being distributed accurately. How will the MLC work with publishers and songwriters, to kind of decrease this concept and hopefully, ideally, nearly eliminate it, whether or not we'll ever get there.
Yeah, so let's talk about what is the black box. And I've written and I've done research extensively on unclaimed royalties, unmatched works, and quote unquote the black box. So for those who are tuned in who are not familiar with the term black box, and I mentioned before, when a song is used in a service and that song earns royalties, and that service then has to pay out those royalties but cannot identify who the payees should be, then the monies owed to those payees have to go somewhere. The monies that are earned, that are due to those payees have to go somewhere, and that somewhere is generally what we call the black box. It's really sort of a either an escrow account, or it's just liabilities held on their books. But basically, the music is being performed on a service, the royalties are being accrued, and then when those royalties have to be paid out, if we can't get the money to the right person or right entity, then that money has to go somewhere and it falls into the black box. There's many reasons why that person may not be identifiable. It could be the work was never registered. It could be there's no metadata sent to the service that identifies the copyright owner. It could be there was metadata, but it's wrong. It could be it was registered, but the registration information is wrong. It could be their address changed. Like all types of reasons why money doesn't flow to the copyright owner. But the point is, when it doesn't get to that copyright owner, it has to go somewhere, and it falls into this idea of this black box, which is this unclaimed royalties or unmatched usage. And over time, it accrues to become this huge. And the value of it has been argued and for many years. I think one of the last published values in Billboard was $2 billion, an estimate. And that was a number close to that I use as well in using multiple black boxes, not just one company or even one right. So what the MLC responsibility is to start to deplete that black box. Meaning to identify the unidentified parties that need to be paid. We can't do that without the data from publishers and songwriters and administrators. So our job is to take in all these black boxes from Spotify, from Apple, from all the services, and then to start knocking out and matching these unmatched works to the copyright information. We've already begun that process months ago. So we began that process in, I think, early summer, late spring, to start matching and unlocking these royalties, and so that we can pay out the proper parties. This process is going to be an ongoing process. We have, as of now, we have a minimum of 3 years that we have to continue to match this box, but we're going to go beyond that 3 years. We're going to continue to try to match as much of this unmatched as possible. As a reminder, the public can go to our website and search this unmatched database. So it's not like we're working from a list that no one knows about. You can go to the MLC.com and you'll be able to search our unmatched database. And then if you find something in there that is a recording that is related to your musical work, then you have to register your musical work so that we can do the matching and therefore unlock those royalties.
Yeah, I think, the unmatched royalty aspect of it, being, again, transparent and all of that is going to be a big step, as we continue to kind of go through the kind of loads of unmatched data, I'm sure. So it'll be.
And I want to state that, and this information is being, the Copyright Office has been working on rulemaking and making public announcements frequently in regards to the rules for DSPs and providing data to the MLC, usage data for the historically unmatched data. So it's not just January 1st forward, it is historical. So it's going to go back a number of years. So if you may have had a release in 2016 or 2017, potentially even further back, that we could potentially unlock royalties from. So those rulings are public. The Copyright Office announces it on their website. They send it out in their newsletter. You can Google search copyright, U.S. Copyright Office rulemaking on usage for unmatched. So we receive guidance from rulemaking process proceedings, the Copyright Office, and as well as through guidance from our committees. We have a committee that's specifically addressing our unclaimed royalties, unmatched usage, and these are our sort of advisors, if you will, that are publishers who understand this really well, who are very intimately affected by the processes that we implement to handle this stuff.
Thank you for, appreciate everyone for contributing. And we'll do our best to work through as many as we can, as fast as we can. And I'll start one off with, we know the MLC is collecting digital mechanical from DSPs like Spotify and Apple. Does that same collection, or will the same collection come from platforms such as YouTube, Facebook, TikTok?
That's a great question. So YouTube, Facebook, TikTok are all user-generated content platforms with video as a element from the music. So our blanket license is an audio-only license. So any audio-visual usage is not covered in the blanket license. So YouTube videos would not be covered in our administration or the blanket license. TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat, all of those platforms that are video based are not covered in our audio only license.
Thanks for clarifying. And another question, I think this is the most popular question from the Q&A. I can actually answer this one. If you are a Songtrust member, we are handling the MLC for you. We're registering your works with them. We've been working closely with them from the very beginning because obviously they're contributing a lot to the accessibility of royalties for songwriters, and we want to support that however we can. So Songtrust members, we are collecting from the MLC like any other source. You register once with Songtrust, we're sending your data to them and going through their data quality initiatives and making sure that we get the most correct information to them, just like any other source. So you don't need to register with both of them, both of us. So I wanted to make sure that you all are clear on that because it seems like a lot of people had questions. And similarly, if you have another publisher or another administrator, you don't need to register with the MLC because again, they're a source that your publisher or publishing administrator is going to be handling for you because they are collecting mechanical royalties, which are going to be a piece of any publishing administration or publishing deal. So another question, the Mechanical Licensing Collective is collecting from only US sources, correct? Can
Yes.
songwriters from outside of the US register directly with the MLC?
Yes. So it doesn't matter where you live in the world. What matters is, do you have the administration rights in the United States for one or more works? So you may live in Europe and you have an album full of original songs that you release in the United States, or you release in Europe, but it gets syndicated to the United States through your distributor. And in that case, it's going to earn mechanical royalties here in the United States. If you're not a member of a mechanical rights organization, a CMO in your territory, then you would therefore not have an entity representing you at the MLC or representing your works. So you may be eligible. So you don't have to be in the U.S. Nor a U.S. citizen to be eligible to join the MLC. And also, I want to clarify again, you may have a publishing deal. I just had this conversation the other day with a songwriter who signed to one of the three majors. You may have a publishing deal. You may have a publishing administrator. You should make sure that all of your works are represented under that deal. If you have works that are not covered under that deal, then you also may be eligible to join the MLC for the works that are uncovered. So this is the case, for example, with CD Baby Pro users. CD Baby Pro is a really great platform for distributing your music into digital services. And that means you get not only distribution, but you get publishing administration services. However, if you're only using CD Baby Pro as your full distribution and publishing administration solution, then that may mean that some of your other releases that are not distributed through CD Baby Pro may not be covered from the MLC through CD Baby Pro's publishing partnership relationship with the MLC. So that means in that case, you may be eligible for the MLC to join the MLC for the releases that are not released through CD Baby Pro. That's just one example. There may be other examples of distributors out there who offer publishing administration as an add-on service, but who only offer that for the releases that you release through them.
That makes sense. I wanted to ask about the unmatched songs in the MLC database. How far back does the unmatched data go? Does it only go from the creation of the MLC, or does it go back further?
It goes back further. It can go as far back as the date the service began operating in the United States.
Great. There are so many questions in here, y'all.
I see one that pops up a few times. I'm not sure if we've touched on it, but what is the relationship, or how does this change Harry Fox agency? It seems as though we probably have quite a bit of people who are familiar with working with them or working through us with them, and what is that relationship? And
Sure. Well, two parts. One is the Harry Fox agency, just like Music Reports, just like MediaNet, which are all companies that handle administration in some capacity for DSPs. Harry Fox also, and more historically, has handled administration for their publisher affiliates. Will continue to operate per usual, right? So they are operating in the sense of doing mechanical licensing, doing performance licensing, or clearing licensing on behalf of their digital service clients. Again, let me go back to the MMA, the Music Modernization Act. The Music Modernization Act created the blanket license. Only one organization can administer the blanket license, and that's the MLC. So if you're a digital service and you want to use the blanket license for your operations, then you work with the MLC. If you have direct licensing, meaning you need to directly license or want to directly license with a publisher, then you can do that direct with the publisher or through any kind of agent, any of the agents that I mentioned, like Harry Fox Agency or Music Reports. They do this all the time. They've done this for many years. They'll continue to do this for years to come. So as a publisher, or as a self-administered songwriter, there are types of services and types of usage that that the MLC does not deal with, and those will continue to be handled by Harry Fox Agency, Music Reports, and again, using media as an example. So whatever operations and business you've had with them should continue, because we don't, for example, handle any of the many audio, visual, social media apps and gaming apps that they represent, that they license, that they help. So you still need to have your publishing information with them. For example, lyrics. Lyric Fine works with Harry Fox Agency. You have Lyric Services that work with music reports. So if you're going to license your lyrics, you have to work with those agencies and make sure they have the proper ownership information for those licenses. There is no change to your need or your business need to work with Harry Fox or music reports. If you felt that you needed to work with them before, then that continues. That being said, our relationship to Harry Fox Agency is one where Harry Fox Agency is a vendor of the MLC. And in that role, we acquire their database as a way to establish our first database that has evolved since. Right? It has evolved through our data quality initiative, has evolved through people registering works into our system. It has evolved by publishers and songwriters checking their data and fixing any errors. But we had to start from somewhere. And we started with Harry Fox's their database, having been around since 1930s. It's an expansive database, so it was something to start with. But we are two different companies, which is why we have two different names. That's the Harry Fox Agency. They have their own employees, and we're the MLC, and we have our own employees. We're regulated by the United States Copyright Office. They are not. We handle one license, which is the digital audio mechanical license, which is a blanket license. They handle all the licenses, direct licenses. We work specifically with DSPs. They work with DSPs, with mobile apps, with gaming, a bunch of different stuff. So that's a whole different business. You wouldn't stop. You wouldn't stop working with them just because you have to also become a member of the MLC.
Yeah, thank you so much. There were a lot of questions about Harry Fox. If you're a Songtrust member, of course, Harry Fox is one of the many sources we collect from, so you are already set there. We are going to have to wrap it up. I want to tell you, I'm seeing a lot of questions in the chat about stuff not related to the MLC. Cover songs, the types of royalties you earn for broadcast radio versus internet radio, YouTube, ISWCs versus ISRCs, and tons of other stuff. And I want to entreat you to check out Songtrust resources, not only our modern guide to music publishing, but our FAQs, our help center, and our blog posts have a lot of information about those questions that you might have that we can't answer now. Thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget to follow us on socials at Songtrust, subscribe to our newsletter, and reach out directly with any additional questions. Thank you both so much for being here. I think this has been really educational for everyone who is able to watch. And thanks so much for everyone for joining us and engaging so much in the comments and the questions. We'll see you next time.